You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason. Rhode Island FC head to Oklahoma for the first time in club history to take on the Western Conference juggernauts since 2024. How will these two recent Cup runner-ups square off, and can the Amber and Blue find a way to earn their second win on the road this season? Or do RIFC alumni have plans to crash this party? And do we have new players on the way? And do we have updates on maybe players on their way out? First and foremost, I'm your host, Matt Entrican. Jason Carey out on assignment tonight. So returning to the show is ever loyal and ever faithful producer co-host Torin Kelly. Sorry, Torin, I can't even say your name right. It's been so long. And I don't think we've ever done a show together in the first place. So this is a very weird place to be.
I think we did my first one together last year. It was Charleston at home, I think. I remember talking a lot about Cal Jennings. But no, I'm doing great. It's nice to be back in the studio with you. You know, we've changed it up a little bit. You know, it's been me and Jason for a while, so it's nice to, get a nice change of pace.
Jason needed a break. I think he had the most consistent podcast run, asked for a night off, and who am I don't pay the guy, so why wouldn't I let it happen? It's a shame he's not here. He loves starting these shows with the celebrity obituaries, and what a week. Dolly Parton, Tim Curry, and now Optimus Prime. It's been a week, everyone, but we're not here to talk about that. Instead, we have to talk about all the craziness going on, jumping straight into the show here. Some hot news landing in front of RIFC fans today, as it's officially announced from Rhode Island FC and Philadelphia Union that forward Stas Korzeniowski has joined the club on loan for the remainder of the 2026 season. Now joining us at the top of the hour is the man who first broke the news, Philadelphia Union beat reporter and good friend of the show, Jose Nunez. Jose, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's Korzeniowski. I'll spare you embarrassment if you talk to him in the future. Korzeniowski.
Mike Wachowski. Got it. Mike Wachowski. Perfect.
No, I'm doing well, man. When I heard the news, just this is on a personal level, just because I've been at this point to officially as press, I think 2 Rhode Island games back when you guys were at Bryant Stadium, and then when actually the home opener, the brand new stadium where they were handing out cookies like they were cookies in the press box, but incognito with family and friends another handful of times. I'm so in love with what you guys are building out there in Rhode Island that when I heard that Stas was making his way over to you guys, a big smile came to my face, just because it's near and dear to my heart. And obviously the staff there, big connection with the Union in terms of Carl Spratt and Dave McKay.
So, Jose, obviously we're going to get to the details of this. First and foremost, want to ask, what is the connection now between these two sides beyond the deal and how this came together? Do we do know the pedigree between McKay and Spratty and their time at that legendary academy that has produced so much amazing talent for MLS over the last decade or so. What have been the connections beyond you coming out and covering the club and those coaching staff alumni?
Yeah, I mean, really good connection. It doesn't hurt, especially now that there's a new regime per se taking over and managing behind the scenes the Philadelphia Union with John Shear, right? Ernest Tanner apparently out, doing his thing, some sort of rehab, whatever. Don't have to get into that whole situation. But John Shear knows those guys very well in terms of Spratt and McKay. So that connection certainly helped. And another connection that's a little lesser known is that of Leo Afonso, who was an academy player with the Union at one point. I still laugh because the picture popped up, or someone submitted it to me from the organization of this, the day after Leo Afonso, I think a couple men down, Inter Miami goes and scores against the Union to win it. The following day, I get sent this picture of Leo Afonso and Philadelphia Union academy attire, standing right next to Jim Curtin with this like gigantic grin. So it's like, oh, okay, the web is just so big. But I must admit, this is, I think, genuinely a match made in heaven for the way that Rhode Island plays, and what, though I think it will be very difficult. JJ was, hate to say one of one, but very particular about the way he played and how he played. I think this is as close as you're going to get for a prospect in terms of a physical player, and we can go more into that.
So before we talk about the comparisons, because a lot of fans already drawing those lines, making those connected dots, want to talk more about how this deal came together. A week or two ago, we reported that Cano Smith was observed at a New England Revs 2 Philadelphia Union 2 match. That really isn't news in and of itself. He goes to as many games locally as he can. He's probably watched just about every MLS Next Pro player in existence at this point. So that wasn't really the breaking part, but it came right off the heels of us learning that this JJ Williams transfer to Hearts was a real thing. And it had us start to ask, we know that given the point in the season where Rhode Island is, where the rest of the FIFA calendar is in terms of starting their seasons, that it most likely looked like it would be an MLS Next Pro loan or an MLS loan of a player that maybe wasn't having the best of seasons. So we just started grasping at straws. I guessed Stas just because I saw his player profile and I saw some of those same similarities. But how exactly did this deal come together based on what you've uncovered from the Philadelphia Union side?
Yeah, in talking with sources, it really came down to, you have some pretty high value players in that of Bruno Damiani and Ezekiel Alado, who are not going to be displaced anytime soon, despite maybe the lower than expected production on their end in terms of goals and assists. Um, that it would be very difficult, I think, to justify the price that they paid and have a 53rd MLS draft pick come and take over and play more minutes than those guys. So I think that's a thing to think about. Additionally, it's also a player that just wants playing time, right? He falls into what a lot of Philadelphia Union players fall into. If you're not a first team player, you're likely too good to be playing MLS Next Pro, but not quite to be a starter. Certainly not a starter, maybe closer to a depth piece, maybe in the lower rungs of a depth piece of an MLS roster. So what's the next best to try to improve, which is USL or going abroad in the case of Neil Pierre, who I still contest should have never gone to Lyngby and played a Danish soccer, considering the prospect that he is. So it's a player that needs minutes, but he needs minutes against men, not against MLS Next Row, which I appreciate. Don't get me wrong. This is not me, talking crap on it, but Stas Korzeniowski should not be playing against 17, 18-year-old kids who are MLS Next Row players, right? He needs to be playing against, and it bumps me out, but, the Josh Joneses of the world, granted he's injured, he needs to be playing against these gritty, tough, big guys to finally figure out, can he actually utilize the skills that he was born with, not taught, but also fine tune what he has been taught and not born with, which is a pretty good shot, a nose for a goal, and ultimately a battery that seems to be endless.
And let me ask you this, Jose. Was the Union looking at, any other clubs to get Korzeniowski off the list? Were they trying to loan him to any other USL teams, or was it just Rhode Island FC?
That I can't comment to without getting myself in trouble. And the reality is that I don't have multiple sources to really comment squarely on it. I found out towards the tail end that it was RIFC where he was going, and doing very light backtracking because I wanted to make sure that the mustache guy that we all compete with for transfer news, Mr. Tom Bogert, wasn't getting a hold of it. Just backtracked as fast as I could to make sure I had three sources saying that, yes, this player is going to Rhode Island. Could there have been other suitors? I wouldn't doubt it, to be honest with you. Though I think what really helped Rhode Island's case is the familiarity, right, in terms of the connection of the former Union staffers and really seeing a one-for-one like in what you all need and had with JJ before he went to Hearts, and now you have it with Stas. And I kind of, when I was doing my own research in terms of, well, can he really be going to Rhode Island? Because I immediately thought JJ's going to Scotland. RIFC must be talking to Minnesota for another player at the rate that they go, right? Who in Minnesota is going to make their way over there?
We'd already done that, though. That's why Logan Dorsey's now playing for Oklahoma. We'd already drank from that well this season. Getting into Stas himself, what can you tell us about him? Before you came on the show, I asked you kind of for a player profile. What should fans that are not familiar with Stas's game be in store for?
Yeah, I don't say this to insult the guy, but I think it's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a JJ Light in terms of a guy who's very physical, who will battle for every ball. He is not afraid to get into tussles. I don't think I've seen a jersey of his in the games that I have watched of MLS Next Pro that's not stretched from a large or an XL to an extra size, just because he's always being tugged on, he's always being pulled, and he's doing the pulling as well. Um, Great shot, strong shot. I don't, this from doing press stuff. You don't typically sit field level, but folks that sit field level and do photography that help me out have mentioned multiple times that when the kid, which is fair to call him a kid, when the guy hits the post, you feel it, right? He has a powerful shot. I know I've sort of heard it reverberate as well, and I think he is as close as you're going to get to a JJ replacement without having to pay one at the moment, right? And I hate to say it because I know if Stas was to hear this, he might take it the wrong way, but I think it's a totally viable path for somebody. I think that USL might be the peak of his level, and that's okay. And I think that there's no better place than to prove himself by joining Rhode Island FC, where he can have some comfort knowing that there's union ties. They're going to appreciate that, and he's going to appreciate that, but also a challenge to keeping this team within the playoff contention. Not saying that you guys will nosedive or anything like that, but it's a challenge, right? The USL, especially in the Eastern Conference, is just always battling, always a good battle. So I'm intrigued on how he's going to respond to this. I'm sure there's a sense of slight disappointment, right? Because he wants to battle for a first team spot. He has a first team deal with the Philadelphia Union. But Rhode Island FC has a beautiful stadium, a great community, unbelievable fans that I just don't see how this can be a negative whatsoever for him. So I hope he sees the bright side of it all. Not everybody's path is linear.
Yeah, and I think, I fully agree with you through the research I've done since you tweeted out that it
I
was
know
going to be
Paul.
Stas
I know Paul.
coming on. I fully agree. I think he really is that JJ-like presence. And that was sort of my one question after our most recent game when we saw Osman Foyo come on the pitch. I thought Foyo looked fantastic. But my one thing is that even though he looks like, he has the physical build of JJ, he's taller, he's bigger, he doesn't play like JJ. He's not that typical number 9 presence. And I watch Stas play in the MLS Next, and he is just like him. And so I think to have that sort of physical presence in there is really important, whether he is going to start and Foyo is going to come off the bench, or if we're going to try something different with Foyo and then Stas is going to be, we need to revert back to the, what we know goes well. But, just to ask you another question, we know that RIFC has sort of been burned in the past by a lot of these loan recall options we saw, as you mentioned, with Logan Dorsey. Given where the Union currently are in the MLS and where they sit on the table, is there any realistic likelihood that he will get recalled this season?
I don't believe so. I think it would take a catastrophe for something like that to happen. I think it's very much CYA, and please don't clip this, though, bookmark it if you want. But I just, yeah, right. I don't see how that happens. The Union, I think, I'm not drawing from sources or anything. This is me specifically. I think are in a spot where they need to market some of the players that they currently have as they're trying to turn this roster over, right? They brought Kai Wagner back. They're bringing Mark McKenzie back from France in the winter, U.S. international. And the reality is that this roster is having a little bit of a cleanup period. So it wouldn't surprise me if even new additions like Ezekiel Alado, Bruno Damiani, who has put every ounce of effort in his body into every single game, unfortunately hasn't produced goals like I mentioned earlier. this is a good opportunity for them to be marketed as much as they can ahead of a potential sale or maybe loan with option for purchase or mandatory purchase if X amount of things happen the right way. So all that to say that you would have to have a catastrophe of injuries for Stas to be called back. This is not like dealing with some other clubs. I think of Brooklyn FC. They had this Kane. It's also a really hard last name.
Mangione. Everybody knows who Mangione is.
No. Their goalkeeper used to be Kane something from Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
Was playing fantastic, playing under Marlon LeBlanc, former Union 2 coach, was putting up great performances, great numbers, but Minnesota, because they wanted a third string goalkeeper, recalled them from getting every single day playing time as a starter with Brooklyn FC. The Philadelphia Union, I don't believe will manage the loan that way. I think this is a true CYA in case of a catastrophe.
So then, speaking to that, based on the time that you broke the news, do we have a timeline that you've been able to assume on when Stas made it to Rhode Island FC? We know he's available per the press release for the game selection this weekend, but we don't know how much time. And I didn't see, we didn't have a media day this week for me to get that information. How much time has Stas most likely spent with Rhode Island at this point?
As far as I know. I believe he said his goodbyes maybe an hour before I announced it. So I think he was on his way out of town on the day I announced it, which was I'm on a time tunnel here with a 6 and a 4-year-old and first day of school for one of them. Today's Thursday?
I think he broke it Monday. Yeah,
Monday?
Today's
Okay.
Thursday. I think he broke it Monday.
So he was saying farewell on Monday and likely made his way up the what is it, 84? Is that what it would be to get out there? Likely flew. But I don't see why he wouldn't be available. He's fit, has played well, practiced well with the Union as well. I don't think he was carrying an injury whatsoever. So wouldn't shock me if he was available and maybe even a starter for the weekend. I think I saw a comment earlier, and I apologize if it flashed and it ran, but you got to play the loans. You don't loan for backup sake. You got to play them. And I genuinely think that there is an opportunity here should RIFC actually want a player on probably the cheap, right? MLS drafted players probably don't carry that much weight in terms of value. I think not that it's the end all be all, but FOBMOB had him, I think, $300K value. That's not a bad price if he's a guy that gives you 3-4 goals, maybe 5 here towards the end of the season before the playoffs. So I reckon you guys will try to squeeze as much out of that rock.
And it's a great thing to have. We go from 2 weeks ago to answers unanswered for where the strike force was going to produce goals. Now Foyo arrives from his time at AFC Wimbledon, and now Stas. So this is an exciting time. I think a new chapter for Rhode Island FC. It'll be exciting to see what this contribution looks like, and just again, hopefully we can keep him, because if history's taught Rhode Island one thing, it's that every year we lose a lone recall. But we have so many on the team now at this point that who knows which one it'll actually be. Jose, it's been such a great time catching up with you and giving us this chance to learn all these things about the Philly player. Where can people find you and all the great work that you do?
Yeah, I live mainly on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Jose R. Nunes 91. Within there, you can see my Substack, which goes a little dormant during the season as I do contract work for MLSsoccer.com, the league's website. So on a weekend basis, you can see match reactions from me. When MLS sides are not getting swept by Liga MX sides in Leagues Cup, you can see writing on my end. And genuinely, I'm just so excited to watch Stas play with you guys. A, because obviously I want to follow the Union connection as a reporter, but B, just because I genuinely appreciate what the hell you guys are building over there. It's fun, it's quirky, and it's enjoyable for sure.
All right, Jose, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can't wait to have you again next time.
Appreciate you guys. Be safe and enjoy.
Thank you, man.
All right, we've got to go to break, and when we return, we're going to talk more about this deal as well as all the other news around Rhode Island FC. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. powering 990 WBOB. That's sproutcoworking.com. Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Back here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, talking about this new edition. You know, Torin, when I met Jose for the first time back in 2024, we were just talking, and you just know that there's good people out there. Jose is definitely one of them. One of the questions I wanted to ask him, though, I'm familiar with what Fought Mob and the 2 games I've watched of Philly 2 action. Where do we think Stas would fit in a lineup like this? We know that Foyo is on a multi-year deal. We know that he's one of the future attackers of this team. Do we see a world where Kano switches tactics and goes to some kind of 2-striker system at this point in the season?
Look, I think it's definitely possible. I mean, when Foyo first signed, I was on the show as well, and I remember speaking about how Kano could switch to a front 2 with JJ and Foyo. And again, for anyone, I recommend any RIFC fans to go watch highlights of Stas, and you will see that he is so similar to JJ, really that physical number 9. And again, I said earlier, but as much as I loved the debut of Foyo, it was very clear to me that he is not the same player that JJ is. He doesn't want to be that physical number 9. He wants to make runs off the defender. And I think he is a player that would definitely be helped by having a physical presence next to him, like Stas. I think obviously Foyo is bigger, but you could see a lot of the times when he was sort of going up for headers, when we were launching long balls to him, he didn't feel comfortable with his back to goal. He wants the ball and he wants to run with it. So to have a player like Stas who is very comfortable with his back to goal, I think it's definitely something you could see. And me personally, I would love to see, especially as I don't think we have a solidified number 10 yet. So I think we're in a good position to maybe try something different.
22 goals in 33 appearances is a pretty delicious stat for any player. What do we think his ceiling is in these 12 games that we have left in the championship? Do we think that we can extract double-digit performances, at least from a total goal contribution, out of him before the end of the season and into playoffs?
Ooh, I think double digits is a tough number. I think if you're including
total contribution, assists, and playoffs, yes.
But here's what you have to think, though, is that I'll tell you this right before he even signs. Stas is not an assister. This is not a man that wants to pass the ball. He wants to get in on goal, and he wants to put the ball in the back of the net.
He has 2 assists in MLS in the first team. How dare you?
Look, I agree. Have you seen those assists?
Yeah, I have.
Exactly. Look, could he get some assists? Maybe. But realistically, we want him to do one thing and one thing only, and that's put the ball in the back of the net. So even if he is a great assister, which I don't believe he is, I don't think that's what Kano is going to want from him when he's on the pitch. He's going to want him to get in the box and score goals. Double digits, I think, is a little bit much. I think for me, if he scored 8 goals this season, including playoffs, I would be happy with that number. What about you?
Well, I mean, there's you want enough to get you across the playoff line, wherever that is, whether it's a home playoff berth or it's just in a place where he's getting hot at the right time. But there's a part of me that selfishly starts to think, how do we buy players like this at the end of the season? And maybe only 5 goals is enough to where we accomplish task 1, and then we still can afford the player, versus seeing him have a lights out moment and then the union going, hey, thanks for taking care of our boy, but we're going to take him back now. I'd like to see some kind of middle ground where we could actually buy a player of this nature going into the next season. So I'm a little glass half full, half empty at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point.
But we've got to move on, and we kind of started this in the reverse order. Normally, we talk about the player that's leaving, and then we talk about the player that's filling the gap. But we still have to report on it because it wasn't official until after our last show. JJ Williams officially to the Hearts. It was the worst kept secret, I think, in Rhode Island FC history. He goes on to transfer for a club record transfer fee. We've been told that's around £100,000, or, given the math on any day in currency stability, it's anywhere from $137,000 to $150,000. He's the all-time leading scorer with 30 career goals. He's got I think he had the first hat trick for the club, multiple braces with the organization. Of course, his historic playoff runs. Torin, I was accused of not being nice enough to him in the goodbye speech. I said that we had never seen JJ Williams reach the pinnacle or his peak of his performance. I stand by that statement because in all 3 seasons that we've had with him, he never bested his championship best down with Tampa Bay. That doesn't diminish what he accomplished with this club. I feel like 2 things can be right here. do we dare to dream what could have been the reality of JJ Williams had he stayed with this club for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think that just comes down to two different people's different definitions of peaks. I think a lot of people see that and think he never played a single game where he was playing at his best. And that's not true. But I fully agree with you that he didn't have a season where he was consistently playing at his best, whether it was injury, whether it was having Dequa playing well, whether it was us just being up and down as a team and not really having great chance creation. But for sure, this was easily going to be his best season. If we go through numbers. So, I mean, me personally, your statement, I fully agree with it. I think this season, in my eyes, with JJ and even with the Clay loss, I still felt this. I thought that we were destined for a top 4 finish. Without him, there are still question marks. I think that we could still do it. I loved the performance of the weekend against Monterey Bay, even though it's Monterey Bay. Still, to put a performance like that without JJ was important. But for me, not only for him, for himself, how many goals he would have scored, but how well we would have done because he was playing so well, I really think the sky was the limit.
It's almost, you dream the what if at this point. You could also think, well, we still were due for a JJ injury, so maybe unloading at the right time, making the highest profit you could on a player like that. I'm not saying anything will happen to the guy. I did go in and look, and since April 10th, I didn't realize he's basically played 90 minutes in every single game. He's not someone that comes off the pitch regardless of what's going on in terms of the performance or the result. I want to talk, though, about something specific to Williams and what this means for the broader game. And I think you're positioned pretty well given your connections to soccer in Europe. JJ Williams is not going out to the Hearts in that young transition development state of that potential block of moldable clay. He's going as an established striker from American systems at his peak. What does that say as a statement for where American talent is, and what does that future look like? Are we as a nation not realizing it, but we're kind of putting a lot of money from a Division II standard on JJ Williams to carry the torch into the next decade?
I mean, I think I fully agree that it's sort of a great thing, but it's also a very nerve-wracking thing because not only is he coming at that age, but a lot of people have saw they gave him the number 9 shirt, which is a big thing. Like, huge. To give a new signing the number 9 shirt is big. And for anyone who does watch Hearts or the Scottish Premiership, they'll know they did just lose one of their top players, Shankland, who was fantastic for them last season, to Rangers. So they need a striker. And I was looking at their list of strikers other than JJ. They brought in one other player this summer who was played up front, and he came from the French 3rd division. So there is definitely no certainty in terms of who is going to start there. And it's wide open for JJ at this point. I do think he fits the mold very well of that sort of Scottish Premiership. It's a very physical game. It's a very robust game. A lot of people in England will call it a Brexit game. It's very much like physical, and it suits to a player like JJ, and also suits to a play style of the USL Championship, which I think is great. And I love the fact you mentioned his age, because obviously we saw Colton Swan also go to the Scottish Premiership. Very different story. Him going at such a young age, he's not going to be starting for a year, probably even 2 years. He's got to, develop. JJ's coming in at this age where he needs to start and he needs to get goals from the get-go. They're signing him as a difference maker. And as much as I'm very excited, I'm very nervous as well, because this is a big sort of showing for the USL Championship. But if there was one player, and yes, it's biased as a Rhode Island FC fan, that I would bet to go and put up goals and go and show everyone what the USL Championship is all about, it's got to be JJ Williams.
I was on a Hearts podcast earlier in the week, and we were talking about backfilling a player like Shanklin, and they asked me what would a good baseline, what would a good floor be for JJ, because we it's so hard to understand what the ceiling could be for a player suddenly playing in a league like that. And I said, listen, if anything, he's going to average at least 10 goals and a handful of assists in a season. And then I asked them, is 10 goals enough to be a replacement to Shanklin? And I think Shanklin had something closer to 20. So they were like, he's going to have to step it up in a big way. So a lot to put to task for Williams. But like you said, I think he's the right man for the job. Anything else on the move that we need to call out, or business done? It's good for Rhode Island, at least financially. And, Connor went on to talk about how this put Rhode Island FC on the map as a club that European interest knows can develop and move talent on. Is there anything else that we haven't really talked about this deal that needs to be brought to light before we put it to bed?
No, I think that makes sense. I think we've done really well this year and even last year to sort of build that MLS connection of we can build players that are good enough for MLS. You look at Morris Dugan and obviously Clay Holstad now going to FC Dallas, and to now bridge that gap between, the US and even the USL and Europe. I think that's just huge, not only for the USL, but huge for Rhode Island FC.
Agreed. Well, JJ Williams, not the only player to leave the club. We have been reporting that we've been told that Amity Jope is no longer with the club. It has still not been confirmed or officially sourced by Rhode Island FC. But when you went and looked at some of the pictures over the last couple of weeks, especially the JJ Williams goodbye with the entire club and all of the technical staff, Amity Jope nowhere to be seen in that picture. We've heard rumors now that there's a potential championship landing ground for him. Not enough yet to talk about, but if Amity Jope were to go to another championship club, akin to a JD Torres situation that's happening with the Charleston Battery, now loaning him down to Phoenix Rising, and I'm not saying this is a loan. I don't know what this is yet, but we do know that he might most likely be on the move. Is that a good thing or a bad thing to see Amity Jope potentially playing in a championship club where we'll have to face him maybe at some point in the season?
First of all, I want to say someone in the chat just put Hartford. Ban him from the chat. Ban him from the chat. We are not playing games like this. All right. As we just talked about how much of a good look Rhode Island FC is making right now with the JJ and the Clay transfers. And let's be honest, this is not a good look. I know that it's probably not a good look for Amity either, depending on how the exit goes. But the fact that we don't know why he's leaving and it leaves that up to question, I do not think that that's good for us going forward, that players are going to look at coming to this club and they're going to go, wait, why did a player that was starting most games, and, we had said it was CB2 for either the end of last year and the start of this year, just suddenly stop playing, stop training, and boom, he's gone to another USL club. So if I'm going to be honest, this is not the best look. And I mean, personally, this one hurts. I think Amity not only was he a great player, in my opinion, for us, I do think he was a different style of player than we're used to. I think, yes, he was on the shorter side, but his ball playing ability and his just in general quickness was something that we are not used to at center back. We're used to these, as Connor calls them, trees up front. So for me, losing a player that gives you a very different style and a very different sort of look at defense, it could definitely be a problem down the line.
I think you're right. In fact, going back to how Kano described Jope, he called him a unicorn. As a left-footed center back is a harder thing to find in this league. It makes me want to start almost going through an exercise of what teams would benefit the most from acquiring a center back like this. I suppose, and I agree with you that if it's nothing other than the best of deals that come out financially on top for Rhode Island, it does kind of give us a pause to go, well, what's going on here for that kind of thing to fall? But until we see it, until we learn more about it, I think it becomes a wait and see. But it's kind of crazy to think that Amity Jope might be in a kit playing at Centerville Bank Stadium against us in the near future. We've got to move on. I want to talk about another defender that got named to Team of the Week this week. Hugo Bacharach gets named to USL's Team of the Week. The Spanish midfielder, of course, proving that why he deserved to be on it with a game-winning goal in the 3-1 win against Monterey Bay. But there was more to it with this. He completed 28 of 29 passes, 4 clearances, 3 interceptions, and 3 recoveries. Torin, I went and looked at his profile status on how he's tracking and ranking among midfielders in the league. It's a vibe. Top 5 across all defensive actions, whether it's contributions, tackles, interceptions. He's become a workhorse, and I think we all know it from a Rhode Island FC perspective, but I think he's quickly making a name for himself across the championship as one of the most elite midfielders in the league.
I mean, yeah, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you'll see that my face did not change with those stats, because if you're a Rhode Island FC fan, you know that Hugo is on another level. I'm definitely biased. I've got his name on the back of my shirt right now. But look, I think he deserves all the flowers in the world. I've talked about it so many times in this podcast that he is the backbone of this team. He is the most important player in this team by far, in my opinion. And yes, he scored the goal, and that's great. But this is a regular Hugo Bacharach performance. For any of us who watch the games, who go to the stadium, you'll know that this is what he does week in and week out. And I'm just so happy for him that he finally gets a bit of recognition from the USL and from the league in general for another incredible performance.
Has he made the case pretty open and closed about being player of the year for Defiance? I mean, with JJ Williams now gone, everyone had been talking. It was potentially JJ, Jojea, and Hugo. I mean, unless Jojea has a breakout or one of these other players scores, 10 goals in these remaining games, it's going to be hard pressed for me to not believe that Hugo Bacharach is the front runner for player of the year.
I mean, yeah, I do want to put an honorable mention because I already voted, and Nick Scardina deserves 100% an honorable mention. I know we've had a little back and forth about this before, but I love Nick Scardina. But no, for me, Hugo Bacharach, easily Defiance Player of the Year, and easily, as you mentioned before, one of the best midfielders in the USL.
Can we call Nick Scardina Rookie of the Year, even though he came from MLS? Can we call him that? I feel like we could call him Rookie of the Year.
100%. He fully deserves it. Yeah.
I love it. Moving on, last bit of news to cover. A bit of an interesting one. Boston Legacy, or maybe it's not, I don't know. Boston Legacy announced that they will be playing their entire season in the NWSL at Centerville Bank Stadium. I guess it's now the Pawtucket Legacy, or what's going on?
I like the Rhode Island Legacy. I've heard that one going around Instagram. I like that one.
But I mean, like, talking about this, I think it's a great move. I went to a couple of Legacy games at Gillette, and it did not feel good. It's the same problem that the Revolution faced, where even if you have 25,000 people at that stadium, it holds so many more, and it just feels like it's not proper. It's not a proper experience. Now you look at the Legacy, who were probably bringing in more like 7,000 to 9,000 on any given night, and it felt even worse. I mean, it makes sense as a venue, but like my question is, and especially considering how close you are to the women's game, is this going to hurt? Is this going to hurt the internal women's project that Rhode Island's trying to launch at some point? I mean, we know that there's been conversations at the D36 level that they are still approaching a way of fielding a women's team at some point, but like it feels like we're just prepping all of the Rhode Island fans for a Boston Legacy experience and then eventually shipping them up to Boston.
I mean, yeah, first of all, I want to say that this news absolutely made my week. It made my month, made everything. I've been to 4 of the 5 games so far. Sadly, I'm missing the 6th game that they've played at Central Bank Stadium, and I've loved every single bit of it. I think the crowds have been amazing. We've seen so many sellouts. They've gotten lucky with the weather, all right? I want to put that in the record, first of all. But I've been so just interested, and I've been loving everything we've been seeing about the Boston Legacy being here. I'd actually go on the other way and say this actually helps our sort of look on a women's team because, the people in the front office are looking at this and there is a huge fan base. Now, don't get me for the women's game. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are coming down from Boston. That's for sure. But especially in that first game, most of the people that I talked to around, I was doing my best journalistic integrity to go talk to people, see what they were doing. A lot of them were from Rhode Island and were like, I wanted to see this out. I wanted to see what was going on here. So in my opinion, the front office should be looking at this and going, there is a huge market for the women's game. And if I'm them, I'm getting right on it because the women's game, as someone who works in it, is growing every single day in every single country, especially in America, especially with the World Cup, the Women's World Cup coming up, not only next year in Brazil, but 4 years later in America. I think this is definitely the time that Rhode Island needs to get right on it and start building this women's team.
Do you think Brett Johnson dropped the ball, not realizing that Ted Lasso season 4 was all going to be about the women's game and not having a team ready to capitalize on that success?
Oh yeah, as an American coach in the UK, I get it all the time. That's the only comparison I ever get. So Ted Lasso is bigger than you expect. So to not have that is definitely a travesty.
I mean, listen, if you need me to put you in connection with Brett for the Ipswich Town FC women's team, like, let me know. We can work out some deals. But I'm
always there.
That's a place and time on another radio show. We've got to go to break, and when we return, we're going to finally start talking about this preview between Rhode Island FC and FC Tulsa. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricate and Jason Carey.
All right, getting back into your match preview of this weekend's match between Rhode Island FC and FC Tulsa. Going through the league standings really quickly, RIFC Torrance still in 7th. It's like we're just stuck there no matter what happens with the result. We win a game, 7th place. We lose a game, 7th place. We draw a game, guess what? It's 7th place. This match will have probably no effect on the table standings should we get a positive result, considering the fact that we are still in contention in a very close race with Indy 11. Louisville City here, interestingly enough, has a tough opponent in Detroit in their fixture this weekend. It's a possible chance to draw even with them on points. They'll, of course, still have the tiebreaker over us because of the earlier match in the season. But, of course, if Jason was here, he'd tell you we've still got those 2 games in hand and a hope and a prayer. What's the head-to-head record between us and FC Tulsa?
So currently in Rhode Island FC's history, there's only been one head-to-head fixture between these two teams in RIFC's history, as I mentioned, and that was a 2-1 victory in our inaugural season, where goals from Noah Fuson and Albert Dikwa propelled us to 3 points at Burns Stadium. And if you actually look at a fun fact, if you compare the Tulsa starting lineup from that game and then compare that to the last match against Orange County, there's not a single starter left on that squad. There is a full revamp. And then if you flip it and look at RIFC's, with JJ's recent departure, RIFC have 7 total starters still left in the squad from that match in 2024. So a very different 3 years, it seems, for these two clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I think of Rhode Island FC's form right now. And by the way, it's so weird to talk about how we haven't seen FC Tulsa since 2024. Even more so a second ago, like you said, the last time we saw them burn stadium, it feels like we see these teams enough that shouldn't be a phrase that's coming out of our mouth, yet here we are dealing with that. Rhode Island FC most recently, 3 wins and 2 losses in their last 5. They haven't been able to string together a consecutive result of wins since they went for that 3-game a little earlier back at the end of the World Cup. This could be the trend. This could be the way to start against a team like FC Tulsa, but a lot of things going against Rhode Island when you look at their away performances on the season, the fact that they haven't played FC Tulsa away, FC Tulsa being a pretty good squad, and we're going to do an interesting baseball stat at the end of the game here that we're going to talk about. Let's move into players unavailable. Jamin Peters, not available for the rest of the season. Amity Jope, we're listing as not available at this point, but Connor could surprise us. Like I said, there might be a bet out there on Kashi to say, hey, Amity Jope is going to make an appearance on this match, so put $5 on it. I don't care. Interesting one, though, we have to talk about. Yutaro Sukada, not going to be available for this match. We learned that Kano Smith had Yutaro go home to Japan to welcome the birth of his child. That was news to me. I didn't even know Yutaro was married yet. I know so little about him as a player so far, but he's now at home with his newborn. So congratulations to Yutaro and family on the new addition. Got to also plug Koke Vegas, kind of subtly announcing that they have the second baby on the way on some social posts this week. I don't think that's going to stop Koke from traveling to Tulsa to play. I mean, could you imagine if Jacob Castro actually got a start in this season?
I mean, honestly, that's a when pigs fly kind of thing. So if I see that, that's my season over with. I'm content.
I know that you recently ran into him on your boots on the ground journalism. Very disappointed you didn't ask him straight up why he didn't get a start in either the Open Cup or in Jägermeister Prinks Tires play. But listen, you're a new journalist. We'll get you where you need to be in the seasons to come.
Look, I wasn't trying to press him too much. He was out getting food. I wasn't trying to come out of nowhere and go, why didn't Kano play you? Tell me now. But moving swiftly on, we have our projected starting 11, guaranteed to be wrong. This time it's me this week. So again, hopefully, maybe it's guaranteed to be right now that I'm doing it. We'll see. Starting off in net, we have Koke Vegas in net. We have the same back 4 with Nick Scardina at right back, Grant Stoneman and Fragna Darce at center back, with Aldair Sanchez at left back. The double pivot remains the same with Emma Spiros-Thompson and Hugo Bacharach. Then going from right to left in the attacking third, we have Jojea Quizera on the right, Noah Fuson in the middle, Pity Rodriguez taking the left, and Leo Afonso up front once again after his goal and good performance, in my opinion, against Monterey Bay. Thoughts on the lineup?
I think this is mostly correct. I'm curious your opinion on seeing Fuson and Rodriguez on the pitch at the same time combining. It feels like it's very much been one or the other so far this season. Not to say that it hasn't happened for some minutes, but I don't know that it's been necessarily a dominant thing we've seen. What are your feelings on the combination of that, given that Afonso has to continue to shine and show things up front, given the fact that Foyo is really not up to speed, and even though he's got the endurance under him, I don't think Stas would be making a start here.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, for me, I think Noah should definitely be a guarantee. I thought he looked really well off the bench against Monterey Bay, linking up with Osman Foyo, and even before that, I thought he looked really well. And I think in general, having a player like Afonso who's going to drop off, I think Noah is more of a player who will fill those gaps up front, even though he's not a natural striker. He's more willing to do that than a Pity Rodriguez. But in terms of them playing together, it can be a little bit weird because obviously they both kind of want to occupy that same space, that left half space. But we've seen it a couple times this season, and against low blocks, we need our best playmakers on the pitch. And at the moment, in terms of pure playmaking and being able to make something out of nothing, they're probably our two best players at the moment. I would definitely put Quizera up there, but he does it from a wider space, whereas I think more centrally is what's important against those sort of, low blocks, because they want to put you out wide. So to have two players like Noah and Pity who can both sort of operate in that middle channel and create something is great. And for me, I wasn't a huge fan of Pity starting on the left, but when Aldair is at left back and can sort of create that width and overlap him, I think you more often see the best out of both Aldair and Pity Rodriguez.
I think there's going to be a lot of conversation talking about the importance and significance of the wing backs and the wingers in this particular matchup, given the way Tulsa shapes up. But I do also want to say, we want to probably have to give some grace to Foyo and Stas in this matchup, not having, a player like what we've seen Utaro already demonstrate. I mean, he's so quickly has locked into that position on the left side. Do we anticipate that if there's a drop in performance on the night, if there's a decline in service, that might not come necessarily from the individual talents and merit of the strikers that take a shot at goal this weekend? Or is it more the fact that we probably don't have all of the key players we'd want to be providing said service into the box?
Yeah, I think that's different for both players. I think with sort of Stas, he's someone that needs service. He needs, like very similar to JJ, he needs people putting balls into the box, putting him in behind. With Osman, he can sort of create things on his own, although he does play better against a more, I wouldn't say a low block is his best game against. I think he prefers a team that's going to press him high where there's space in behind, or he has space to pick up the ball in between that midfield and defensive line and run at the back line. So I fully agree that there's going to be a lot of grace this game if either of them start or when either of them play.
Foyo only got a handful of minutes last time. He said that he was working into his fitness in the post game last week. What's the, as a coach yourself, what's the amount of minutes you put on Foyo's legs in this matchup this weekend?
I think when you just go sort of based off of you need to increase those minutes progressively. If he got 10 minutes, he came on the 80th minute, he got 10 minutes plus added time. For me, I would definitely see a 60th minute cameo as being the more obvious thing. And in my opinion, it definitely is more of a case of, yes, you want to play it by how the game is going. So if Afonso is playing fantastically, maybe wait and let him play a little bit longer. But at the same time, he needs to get minutes for his own development in the long term. So I think kind of no matter what, maybe it's not for Afonso, maybe it's for Pity, and Afonso drops deeper. I think he needs to come on in either the 60th or 65th minute just to help that progression and that match fitness going forward.
That feels right. Krifa will probably also get some minutes to help a very tired Grant Stoneman, who has been doing more than his fair share over these last few months. Exciting to see what happens here. But I guess the question that I have for you is, looking at where we think this lineup will match up on the weekend, what is the tactical setup that should favor or maybe hurt this roster matchup against FC Tulsa?
Yeah, I think it's definitely sort of a mix of both. Again, it depends on what RIFC team we see, because as we were talking earlier with that low block, Tulsa average, as per usual with most of our opponents, less than 50% possession a game. I know we go on and on about it on this podcast about how annoying low blocks can be, but hey, that's the USL Championship for you. They average 44.4% possession a game, to be specific. So it's very important to have those playmakers not only on the pitch, but on show. I think we need to see big games from Jojea, Noah, and Pity Rodriguez. It's as simple as that. And a lot of times we've seen it do well. I think you look at games like, Pittsburgh, we were able to win 1-0 against a low block, but where I think actually Noah had a very good game when he started. We've also seen other games where we come against low blocks and we have absolutely nothing all game long, and our playmakers are just constantly trying things and nothing is working. So for me, this is a huge game for that sort of attacking midfield three.
I do not disagree, and we'll break down everything from the FC Tulsa side here when we come back from break. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
A little bit of a history lesson here for those, because it's been a minute for FC Tulsa since we last saw them, and there might be new fans that have only been acquainted with the stadium in downtown Pawtucket that have not yet seen this side outside of the standings on the internet. Got to talk. Obviously, they were the darlings of the Western Conference last season, making it all the way to the final, hosting the final, in fact, only to fall short against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, something we also experienced last season. This team has gone through some transformation despite having retained 14 players from their Western Conference championship last year. It's just not quite the same team. I would say that the big reinforcements have mostly been in net with Alex Timbakis coming in from New Mexico United. He's a journeyman in the league, probably has some of the best stats. It might not be a Vidiello or Vegas level of contribution, but he's been in this league so long that he's been doing a consistent job across the many teams he's been a part of, having 58 career regular season shutouts entering into the season. But where I want to talk, Torin, is the real departure of the attack for FC Tulsa that left this team last season. You've got to talk about the three most important contributors to their historic run. First, Taylor Calhera, who moved on to Sporting Kansas City. He was, I think, on pace to be the Golden Boot, had about 17 or 18 goals under him before leaving on to Sporting Kansas City. And then his kind of three amigos, the other two sidekicks in that bunch, Khalil Medkar and Stefan Lukic, both all, combining for 30 goals across all three of them for FC Tulsa on the season. The attack has struggled all season for FC Tulsa with only recent arrivals. You could say Quimi Ordonez, who came from Loudoun, that first domino to fall. He comes in a midseason transfer after Loudoun doesn't quite seem to work out for him. And then a name that I think all of Rhode Island FC fans are going to be very familiar with in Logan Dorsey, who gets recalled from his loan at RIFC, where Minnesota United, in the same breath, loans him on to FC Tulsa. We learned a little bit more about that deal, that it was Logan Dorsey and their sporting director who had initiated that, feeling that there wasn't enough playing time, not enough goals scored by Dorsey to keep him in the amber and blue. This attack seems to be reinvigorated at this point. Most recently, a 5-1 crushing defeat against Orange County. A win, Orange County getting the defeat, and it comes with a hat trick from Quimi and a goal scored from Logan Dorsey. So it feels like this attack might be starting to click. Is this the wrong time for Rhode Island to be facing off against a team like FC Tulsa?
I mean, possibly. If we talk about Tulsa in their last 5, they're on pretty good form this moment. They've won 3 out of their last 5, with obviously the standout, as you mentioned, when they absolutely hammered Orange County away as well, just to mention that, with, as you said, Ordonez backing that hat trick. And the 2 losses, they come against tough sides as well. This is not like they're losing out of the blue. They came against Detroit and New Mexico United, 2 very good teams. And their wins also being against relatively difficult sides with Pittsburgh and Sacramento. But when you look at games that weren't that Orange County games, they're all 1-score games or 2-score games. So this was definitely a very random, out of the blue sort of, we win 1-0, we lose 1-0, and then bam, 5-1. So I don't know if we can reliably say that they're sort of, back where they were going to be in the attacking front. I think the big thing is potential. I think we saw their potential and we saw their ceiling against Orange County, but they're all young players. Ordonez is very young. Logan Dorsey, as we know, is very young. So whether or not we can see that on a consistent basis, especially against what has been a very good defensive side with Rhode Island FC, will we see them sort of revert back to those 1-score games, or can they sort of rise above it and continue to push that ceiling higher and higher?
I think the big conversation is maybe not just the form of Tulsa and where they're at now, but also looking at their home performance. I didn't realize this at the time, but 19 points dropped in games at home across all competitions this season. That's a pretty crazy stat for the former Western Conference champions. That's not something that you want to build as your baseline. I hate when I see teams like this that do crazy things on the road and then just can't show up for their fans at home. We've been accused of this as being road warriors before.
We feel you.
I hate it. But at the same time, Rhode Island not necessarily doing too well on the road themselves. Just one win on the road so far this season. Lots of questions to be answered out of these two teams. I guess I'd want to ask you then tactically, we talked about this back three. Where would you say that Tulsa is going to be able to look deadliest at us on this weekend and possibly kill off the game?
So I did end up watching that Tulsa Orange County game. It came at a perfect time where I had just gotten back home, flicking on the TV. Oh, Tulsa's playing. Let's go watch it. And for anyone that watched that game, you can point out the exact way that they could kill us. And it's those runs in behind. Tulsa always play with that front two. They play very similar to how RIFC started and how most people will know us with that 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, whichever way you want to call it. Typically, it's a combination of Ordonez, Cabral, and Dorsey. It's two of those three. And they're all very powerful runners. I think it's one thing that people don't really talk about enough in the game is you can be slow, you can be fast, but if you can be powerful in this league and run powerfully, that is very important where you're quick. But at the same time, when a player puts their shoulder on you, that is not going to fall you. You're not going to take a bad touch. You're not going to take a bad shot. You're not going to stop your stride. And all of these players are very powerful runners. We saw it with Dorsey. He's got that very good size, good build, and he's quick as well. And they love to run onto these balls in behind the back line. Now, this can cause all sorts of problems for a defensive line who are always spending all game checking their shoulders and watching for these runs. And the minute you don't do that, boom, in behind and in on goal. And you're pretty much just praying on your goalkeeper can come out with a masterclass to make you look better. So especially without Yao, who is one of our more powerful defenders, yes, he may get some minutes, but it's very unlikely that he does end up starting in this game. This could be a huge struggle for a player like Grant Stoneman, who, as we've said, has been giving us a lot, playing a lot of 90 minutes nowadays. And he's not exactly known for his physical attributes, to say the least. I've heard the name Old Man Grant a couple of times in Defiance. I'm not saying that. Let's clarify.
The admin is saying it, okay? The admin is starting that beef, and Grant is aware of it, and he's taking actions, okay?
So it'll definitely be interesting to see how Kano attempts to offset this. And do you think we can maybe see a bit of a lower line as a way to offset this?
It makes sense. I mean, I didn't even mention the attacker and Remy Cabral. He has burned Rhode Island FC in the past. He's a very fast French striker, and he has caused us problems at his time at Phoenix. So I do believe in that. I think a low block could solve a lot of our problems, but then that means how much more or how much lack of support will we be offering the front line, especially as it's in this identity transition. I'm not sure where Kano will want to go with that. He expects these teams to run a lot of miles on the pitch on any given day. I think it'll be, I kind of had this later of saying, just weather the storm for the first 30 minutes and then make that decision on where to either wave a press back in, play a little bit higher up the pitch once you've got a taste of what FC Tulsa is bringing. That's the other problem with seeing these teams where you haven't seen them in 2 years and all you have is tape to rely on. You don't get that familiarity with it. I was actually going to say something in addition to what you were commenting on, that besides just transition and getting behind and slipping past defenders, Tulsa is one of the best teams in the league right now in goals from set pieces. We've talked at length about how good Rhode Island FC is. Tulsa's right behind them, 5th place in the league. They've actually scored 1/3 of all of their goals in league play from dead ball situations. So it's kind of like, okay, now we know that they can run at you and they can score at speed. And then if they do somehow slow the ball down, they're also going to be able to put on some set piece magic and find a way to the back of the net. So that seems like a dangerous team offensively. I guess I'd ask then, if that's what's going good for Tulsa, what's going bad enough that we can feel confident we can kill Tulsa on the other side of this?
I mean, at the end of the day, this is another back three, and I think there's kind of the same formula to beating any back three, even with different managers. There is that same sort of formula, which is, can you attack quickly and kind of get in behind those wing backs and run at those center backs? Then your wingers can kind of look to take on those center backs one-on-one. Again, center backs are not used to defending players one-on-one. That's not what they want to do. So when you have players like Jorge Quizera or even Noah Fuson running at those players, and why it's a huge shame that Yutar Sukata isn't playing, because if he could do that, he is incredible one-on-one. We've seen it in these last few games for us. So it's a big shame that we don't have him. But for me, Jorge Quizera thrives against the back three. In my opinion, and also according to FootMob, his best 3 games of the season have been against back threes. Can you guess which three those were?
I don't even know what. I would say, who uses a back three right now? Louisville used a back three, but we did not do well against Louisville.
Louisville is on there. Louisville is on
okay.
there. I have it not as a team, but purely Jojea Quizera's performance.
Oh, so if it's just Quizera where he's hurt, so was it Lexington as well?
No, we have Charleston on the list, the 4-0 Charleston.
Okay,
we got one more. This is the obvious one. You should be getting this one.
Obvious one. Man,
think about his best game of the season. Forget the back three.
His best game was Louisville. He got 2 goals in that game.
There's a different one where he got 2 goals.
Wait, no, am I not thinking? I'm blank. It's like 10 o'clock. It's my bedtime right now. I don't know. Tell me more.
It is the cup game against Brooklyn, the double brace between JJ and Jojea. And of course, normally that is a trick question for those who don't know. Brooklyn don't normally play a back three, but in that game they did. And Quizera absolutely killed Gabby Alves on that left side. So for me, if he can get going, this could be an incredibly dangerous game for our attack.
You know, you mentioned Utara a second ago, and I was just thinking it's a shame he didn't have his child in America so that we could have a future winger in the U.S. men's national team. But, you know, Utara's got to do what Utara's got to do. Speaking of former players, since you made the Gabby Alves name drop there, want to talk about another player that's a former RIFC player, Logan Dorsey. No surprise to everyone following along on this journey, already has 4 goals for FC Tulsa this season. Even had a cheeky handball called back against New Mexico United. Got to ask the question, if Jason was here, there's the curse of players that, you know, move on. Are we going to see RFC defend easily against a player like this, or should we expect shenanigans akin to Steven Turnbull and Matthew Ndongo?
For me, it's very dependent on what side of that striker sideline he starts. We've seen him on the left side. We've seen him on the right side. In my opinion, if he's on the left and he's up against Frank Nadarce, I do not see him scoring very easily. I think it would take a brilliant moment from him to be scoring with how good Frank is playing right now. If he is on the right, then maybe there could be an issue with his pace against Grant Stoneman, who's been playing so many 90-minute games recently.
Nick Scardina will be tasked to help Stoneman on closing the player down. Want to talk about Tulsa's scoring, by the way. It feels like this is a feast or famine type of thing for them. First and foremost, when you look at their goals scored, we talk about the 5-1 victory against Orange County, but before that, they had only scored 3 goals or more 2 other times this season. They're very much a team that plays in the margins of 1-0 victories or 1-0 defeats. Like you said earlier, they don't even care about having the ball. In this particular match against Orange County, 10 shots on target, 15 total, with 5 of them finding the back of the net. Is that something that you think is par for the course? Is this more of a clinical finishing team, or are we going to see volume from this FC Tulsa side?
I think at the end of the day, this is a very similar team, and they play very similar to games that we've struggled with in the past year. As you look at Pittsburgh, even Hartford, I would mention, they're very similar, where against teams that are going to be high, possession, and they're going to try and press you up, they'll kill you. They'll get in behind, 5 or 6 times in the game. And, as much as, they are finishing the chances, they're very easy chances. I mean, Logan Dorsey's goal was pretty much a wide open goal, and there was 2 defensive mistakes in that game as well from Orange County that pretty much meant you had a pretty easy one-on-one against the goalkeeper where he was left stranded. So in my opinion, if we play the way that we did this year against Pittsburgh and against Hartford, where we sit a little bit deeper, we let them come to us, and then we counter, I think that we can easily see a 1 or 2-0 win as long as we end up converting those chances when we go forward.
Want to talk another interesting fact about FC Tulsa. It's our first time in Oklahoma, but it's our last time, as we know it for now, where we will be playing on a baseball field for the first time ever. Can you guess the teams that have baseball fields? Are you keeping track of stadia conditions in the championship?
The Oakland Roots?
They technically do, but the Coliseum has been converted. But I'll give you that one. That's an asterisk one. So yeah, that's one.
I know Las Vegas converted recently.
So Las Vegas is a converted. I mean, Las Vegas is in their last year at Cashman Field. Nobody knows where they're playing next year. They might be playing at a local high school at this point. But yes, so that is a baseball conversion. There are two more active ones besides FC Tulsa.
Oh yes, I was doing research. New Mexico United because I was watching this
United.
game. Oh, it's gonna be teams down south, isn't it?
Yep, and in more ways than one. How right that answer is.
Okay, so it's like East and West Coast. All right, I think you've given me that. It's not Phoenix Rising. I know that
they play in an airport parking lot. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Is it El Paso?
El Paso they still play in El Paso's baseball field. Now the last one, and some people would say it doesn't count because it's been converted for so long, but it is very much a baseball field. The Tampa Bay All-Lang Stadium, a former minor league baseball stadium that's been converted.
That's right. Yes, of course. We just played them too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think we can count that. I think.
But the argument would be stadiums that actively have baseball teams, and that would be New Mexico, El Paso, and OK Energy, or not OK Energy. That's a different team. OK. What do they call themselves? OK One Field. It is an energy company, but FC Tulsa's baseball field. Now, can you name the only other baseball team we've ever played on? The team we can't ever play them again on a baseball field though, because they might not exist.
Well, I was gonna say, I have no idea. The only game I remember watching us play in a baseball field was Oakland Roots. I've got nothing.
Memphis 901, rest in peace.
Oh, yeah, rest in peace, man.
Now that you know all the teams, here's a little quiz. What do you think our win percentage is for teams where we've played in baseball stadiums?
Oh, okay. Well, we beat Oakland.
We did
in a baseball field. I think we beat Las Vegas in our first season, but I don't remember if it was home or away. I think it was
home. Or it was home to them. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2 wins. The fact that I know we've played El Paso and New Mexico, and I know those games probably haven't gone well, I would say it's probably below 50%. I'd say it's in the 20s, like maybe 25, 30.
If you count Tampa Bay as another converted field, then we have a 60% win rate in baseball stadia. If you count specifically stadiums that are still active baseball fields, we have never won a match that in a current active baseball stadium. So this is a chance to do something we've never done before, Torin. Win a soccer game in a baseball stadium.
All right, then. That will be interesting. Some very conflicting stats here. All right, there's a good stat and a very, very bad stat. But I feel like we've done. Go on.
Well, no, I was gonna say the chat's leading the bearing the lead here. We haven't played Brooklyn FC, and they're like, "What about the field where Pele played in back in the 80s?" That doesn't count because we haven't done that yet. That's the October challenge. Right now is the stat where we can do this for the first time. So we shall see if we can change our baseball stadium winning ways. Because right now, it's not there. It's just not there.
Yeah, I feel confident, and we're moving on to how can RIFC take these 3 points? What are your thoughts on this? Because I feel like we talked a little bit about it, but how are you feeling about this game?
I'll go first so that you can educate everyone with actual real tactics. I think based on what we were talking about with this back three, I think that the real trick here is to make them defend and hold them to it. One of the interesting things with Tulsa right now is they have one of the highest clean sheets averages in the league, but when they're off, they break and they leak badly. They are also one of the highest goals scored against teams on average in the championship. Their goal differential across the league on home and away performances is just +2. So they are doing a lot to score, to stay ahead in matches, and not enough to close out games. That tells me that this defense can be had. And as long as RIFC survives the first 30 minutes, either with no goals or an RIFC goal, letting them take the lead, I think that's the key here. Is one, we know that this team can't chase, but there's something to be said about the lack of cohesion in Tulsa's defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put it bang on at the moment. I think for me, the first half is the big one. We've seen in most of these games, we talk about it all the time about how good we are when we score first. But for me, it's the first half. I think you look at that Pittsburgh away game that we played recently where we won 1-0 with that JJ back post header. To me, that was the perfect way to play against a team like this. And I love knowing that we can now go into games like this. And it's, again, can we sit deeper? Can we invite the pressure? Because in my opinion, players like Ordonez, like Cabral, like Dorsey, if you sit back and you force them to cross balls in, or you force them to sort of make something out of nothing, you're not going to see a lot out of those players. I think Dorsey's maybe the only one of the three that could maybe get on the end of a cross. But again, when you're fighting with Grant Stoneman and with Frank Nadarce, two players that are very good at clearing headers out, and even Hugo Backrack when he drops in there, I do not see it likely that he is going to be scoring a header in this game. I'm ready for the meme to be inserted next week after Logan Dorsey scores a header. So let's just put that out there right now. But for me, I really do think that this is a game that RIFC can continue that momentum. And, it's really needed. We are awful this year at building on momentum. You see all the times we win one game and I'm feeling good. The hope is there. I'm thinking we finally done it. We're finally going to break it. And then boom, Sacramento. And in this case, Tulsa. So for me, you need to stay disciplined. You need to stay physical. You need to be relaxed, be calm and patient, and the chances will eventually come. And then it's down to whether or not we can put them in the back of the net, which isn't the best of the moment without JJ. I know Afonso played well, but there is the caveat of it was Monterey Bay, and it was a very easy one-on-one. So really it's about, being patient, and when those chances come, can you finish them? And I know that ever since this season, we've stopped with the predictions, but I'm back on. Jason's been kicked out, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. I would like a prediction for you for RIFC against FC Tulsa this weekend.
I put the predictions in after the game's over on the Discord. So I think, given the state of our attack, whether or not we see Osman Foyo do a throw in into the box from into play, because who knows who's going to take on that role with Clay and JJ gone now. I think we win this game 2-1. I feel like we've got it in us. There's a lot of change in the air for this squad right now, and I think it's more than realistic, but I don't see us getting the clean sheet. So I've got it as a 2-1. If you're going to make me go back to predictions, that's 2-1 RIFC. How about you?
I've thought about this long and hard. I was ready for this. And the last time I predicted a player to score, I don't know if you remember that, I predicted a certain fantastic Japanese winger to bag in his first game at Central Bank Stadium, and I was right. So I'm going to continue on that lens, and I'm going to go 1-0 with an Osman Foyo goal off the bench.
This is why we don't let you on the show this much. It's your humility that keeps you from being on it more often. Let's get to this ref report. Head referee Mark Verso going to be commanding the game with his assistant referees of Sun Yinka Kiend and Jacobo Zuniga. The fourth official is Sad Omanovich, and that's what it's going to be. This game's an 8:30 game, so for those of you remembering that, it's been 7:30 is at Centerville Bank, it's going to be a little bit later, despite the fact that it's still a Saturday night. Big watch party at Defiance's 1636 party at the Guild. There's going to be the Koki Taco Truck, a lot of giveaways, a lot of good things going on there. But if you're not making it to the watch party at the Guild, where can you find all the action, Torin?
You can find it on Nessun Plus, ESPN Plus, and on 790 The Score.
Torin, it is always a blast. I'm going to have to kick Jason out on more assignments in the near future. You're a lot more fun to talk with than him. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Best of luck as you head back to your real job, which is not being a podcast co-host and producer, and can't wait to see all the great things you're going to accomplish over the next season here.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure. And to all the fans out there, anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at The Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again Until then, I'm your main man, Juju. And on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.